Hello indie game fans, the catch-all strategy genre is alongside city builder, factory builders, RTS and tactics titles, although we do have a number which mix genres, so let's begin with Imperial Ambitions, a pretty pixel art title that has you taking control of a European superpower during the Age of Discovery and partake in imperialism to conquer and spread their influence across the world. It is of course a civilization-like game but with interesting ideas, such as large armies having to move slower in formation, while smaller regiments can be split off, but you do need to be aware of your front line so as to not leave any gaps. There are different social classes for your people, black market trade, a tech tree that is not fully revealed at the start, and deals with historically accurate but controversial choices such as slavery, so it is not a papered over version of history and could be neat. Here's a minimalist but interesting looking building strategy game in Lueur and the Dim Settlers, one in which you're expanding your city to push the boundaries out and explore, having to ensure that you have enough resources to survive. There's lore in the world surrounding mysterious black monoliths, so you need to push back the darkness and uncover their secrets, with a level-based structure that is 30 to 60 minutes long each, as advertised by the developer, and is one of those coffee break kind of games. This video is brought to you by Quilts and Cats of Calico, a digital adaptation of a board game named Calico that is just the coziest thing ever, having you sewing quilts by placing patches down, forming colourful patterns, earning and sewing buttons, as well as attracting adorable cats, so what's not to love? This is a Euro-style board game in which you are strategically trying to complete patterns on your quilt, which then gets you cats and buttons, all of which factor into your points, which will determine who the winner is. There's also a create a cat mode in which you can customize your own little furry friend, which then factors into the game. Digital adaptations of board games saves you the hassle of setting it up, with the convenience of the rules being automatically enforced with no second guessing and arguing over grey areas in the rule book, and with both online and offline multiplayer support will allow you to easily play with friends or strangers. Impressively, the developers have gone the extra mile and made a single-player story campaign which is not in the tabletop version, set in a city inspired by the work of Studio Ghibli and is an added bonus. This will be released very soon in March 2024, so be sure to wishlist the game for now and look forward to the release. For some reason, historical 4X strategy games are probably the most common type of setting for this genre, so how about one that is set in the Stone Age in Folk Emerging? This has a hex grid in the world and simulates the characters, cultures and ecosystems in a web, which looks to be the most interesting part since, for example, each character's relationship with the others can be examined at a glance, with, horrifyingly, decisions that you make possibly having implications way down the line in the great-grandchildren of the characters. You have to be in harmony with Mother Nature as well, since overhunting a particular type of animal can screw up the ecosystem, and add to that a turn-based combat system in which you fend off attacks from rival tribes, and you have the potential for an interesting title. Here's a neat-looking side-scrolling strategy-based defense game named Hoglands, in which the most obvious comparison would be the Kingdom games or even Retropolis, in which your hogs are protecting themselves from undead pigs. The almost tower defense-like aspect to the game is the draw, with resource gathering and base building elements, as well as hero pig characters and RPG elements, and looks awesome. A neat-looking, if minimalist, strategy title is Planetiles, one in which you are placing down tiles and forming groups of similar tiles in order to get bonuses and score points. It is roguelite-ish in nature since you get to choose from upgrades, having a vibe similar to games like the chill City Builder, Islanders or Dorfromantic, and could be neat. An example of a game that mixes genres is Kaiserpunk, a title that merges city builder with grand strategy, in which you're building out individual cities and production chains there, and then using these resources to feed into your war machine as you go about conquering the world with your armies. Set in an alternate history 20th century, in what looks to be the time period around World War I, attempt to become the most dominant superpower in the region, either through military conquest or even economic might. The choices you make will have long-ranging effects over time, and the game even has systems to kick you out of power if you mess up, and looks like it's for fans of the genre. Another digital adaptation of a board game is Overboss, one in which you play as the villain and have to build out your dungeon, recruiting monsters and getting the high score in order to become the boss of all monsters, or the Overboss if you will. You are drafting terrain tiles and placing them on the map, in which different types of terrain are scored differently and where their quantity and position factors into the final score. Each tile comes with a monster, and having these in line gets you even more points, with the added strategy of using portals to move around said monsters and crystals to multiply your score, and you have a very strategic title. The pixel art here is gorgeous and appears to be a faithful adaptation of the game, in which it is supposed to launch in Q1, so it should be any day now. From the developers of Warhammer 40k Gladius comes ZEPHON, a sci-fi post-apocalyptic 4X strategy title that appears to be the same game but without the license, which, to be fair, might be the smart move to make, since they don't have to share any of the profits with Games Workshop, and the developer is even self-publishing, so that eliminates the publisher's cut as well. Now, it might not exactly be a 1:1 clone of their earlier game, and I'm sure we'll have new ideas and innovation, but Gladius is a very popular 4X game for good reasons, and that knowledge and expertise could translate quite nicely into this game as well, having both cyberpunk and eldritch monstrosities in this game, and looks to be a great entry. I've covered the minimalist strategy title Yield in the past, in which, if I'm remembering correctly, this has undergone somewhat of a visual transformation while still retaining that almost children's wooden toys kind of look, which is very well done. It is a hex-based, turn-based strategy title in which conquerors from 8 different factions battle over the ashes of the Roman Empire, each of which is supposed to have unique strengths and weaknesses. It is a self-described compact 4X title, so it's designed to have shorter play sessions, but looks no less strategic than the other great games in the space. Fans of the channel will be aware that I love Heroes of Might and Magic, having played 1, 2, and 3 in my youth, with Hydro MM3 of course being my favourite, which is why I always look at indie developers who are continuing on that legacy, given that the IP is rotting away at Ubisoft, which brings us to Mystical Conquests. While it doesn't exactly look like Heroes of Might and Magic, there are some similar elements such as the hex grid turn-based combat, but it's bottom up instead of left to right, and thus have changes such as the overworld itself having a hex grid map more akin to a 4X game like Civilization. There are also city building elements in which you build on the overworld, which does resemble Songs of Conquest, and where I do have a soft spot for the ultra minimalist pixel art as well.
After hundreds of years of wandering and foraging, people started to settle and they built the foundations of today's civilizations.
This next title is here primarily because I'm just confused as to what kind of game it is, since Earth of Orin is a self-described city builder / strategy game, but also has siege elements in which you need to raise an army to defend yourself against external threats. There are 4 civilizations in this game with unique story campaigns, but you can also build and manipulate the environment, such as creating a channel for natural flowing water in order to power a water mill, along with city building aspects like building construction, creating plots of land for farming, hunting wild animals, fishing, creating a religion, and more. As such, it might be a little bit more similar to the Stronghold games and has a visually impressive art style, so whatever it ends up being might be a title of note. The sequel to an indie hit is Yes Your Grace Snowfall, which is a direct continuation of the story of Yes Your Grace, but no prior knowledge is required and works as a standalone title. You play as king and have to make decisions that will affect the entire kingdom, meeting with and granting or rejecting the requests of the peasants, as well as forging alliances with other nations to protect your kingdom. The pixel art style here has shifted into one that uses 3D environmental objects, so it has an interesting look and should be a good game. This next title also mixes genres but looks awesome, in which Vampire Clans is one part management sim where you're building up an underground vampire lair under the streets of Paris, creating rooms and preying upon and enslaving humans in order to grow, but somehow also has real-time combat, but in which you can use your vampire powers to invoke slow motion and looks intriguing. I suppose this is more vampire power fantasy simulator more than anything, since you do seem pretty OP as compared to the hapless humans, and looks to be similar to the Sweeney Todd-like management sim Ravenous Devils, but vampire themed instead.
You are the Emperor.
Okay, this next title is for hardcore strategy game fans, since Alliance of the Sacred Suns is a grand strategy title that seems to have a little bit of Crusader Kings DNA in it, but where the entire thing is in space. You play as the head of an interstellar empire, with the game beginning at your coronation but ending at your demise, where in the meantime you need to make critical decisions to stay in power. There are alliances with other galactic empires to be made, separatists to battle, and grand projects to undertake, which will spread your name or infamy across the cosmos. The player character also ages over time, with their health being a consideration depending on the choices made, and that is in addition to having to manage the 5 great houses of the empire and their loyalty to the throne. There's definitely room for Game of Thrones style shenanigans in this, since you even have the equivalent of the small council, so to speak, with high-level advisors managing finance, science, and so on, and your influence extends all the way down to the planetary viceroys that help carry out your will, looking to be deeply strategic and is for fans of the genre. Imagine my surprise when Rails 2 was announced, since it has been something like 10 years since the first game, and as a side note, indie developers do seem to love revisiting their games if they've managed to stay in business, with 10 being the magic number as seen in World of Goo 2 as well. But back to this side-scrolling god game. You're controlling these giants which have special abilities like being able to create an ocean or to plant trees, using these to help or punish the hapless humans. You're creating an ecosystem with endless possibilities of synergies, but critically, cannot directly control the humans. Sitting back and guiding civilization looks all well and good, but it gives you a punch in the gut if they become a spacefaring, warmongering civilization, so your decisions will have a ripple effect with different planets to play on to try different decisions. From the look and theme of Millennia, this is pretty much a civilization-like in every sense of the word, being a historical turn-based 4X title that is loosely based on human history, but explores alternative timelines and possibilities, such as what if aliens came to Earth, or what if steampunk technology took off instead of electricity. There are 10 different ages of human history to explore, from the first cities of humankind to the 20th century World War period and even the age of space travel, in which certain critical moments in history, known as crisis ages, can then completely move the timeline in another direction, and it's a Paradox published title, so it should be deeply strategic. Here's a game which I'm very excited about since while Crown of Greed looks like a city builder or RTS title, the closest comparison that I can think of is the Majesty games being an indirect management sim in which you're influencing the villagers and heroes but not directly issuing orders to them. That means setting the correct incentives in hopes of getting the outcome that you want, set against a dark fantasy world drawing upon Slavic mythology. I always have a soft spot for games like this precisely because of the indirect control being a different kind of game that is difficult to pull off, so here's hoping they stick the landing.
Lorelei, it's been an honor fighting by your side.
Remember when I said I love Heroes of Might and Magic? Another game which looks to have a similar inspiration is Songs of Silence, but one that mixes turn-based kingdom management and hero development with real-time auto-battling combat.
We did not come by choice.
Yes, every unit is represented on screen, where you're generally placing them down in formation and then hitting the go button to watch them battle with the enemy, looking like Heroes Hour with a different kind of art style and looks neat. The demo has been very well received and it's a story-driven title and might be one of the better games of the year.
The void will devour everything unless we stop the crusade.
I kind of missed Plague Lords when talking about upcoming strategy roguelike titles, so I wanted to give it a mention here, in which this is a self-described turn-based tactical sandbox that looks awesome. You're managing a settlement of peasants, craftsmen, and soldiers, having to construct the necessary buildings and defenses, train up your troops, and fight against the Scourge. Units appear to be in small squads as compared to individually controlled like in a tactics title, and there's also a procedurally generated open world to explore, along with survival elements like food, drink, and sleep requirements, and also a day-night cycle, so it looks fairly ambitious and I hope it's good. Another game which will be no surprise to longtime fans of the channel is Silence of the Siren, another Heroes of Might and Magic-like turn-based strategy game complete with city building, unit recruitment, hero development, and turn-based combat on a hex grid, where this is one of the most faithful HOMM3 likes that I have seen. So as explained earlier, I have an inherent bias to this, which I hope is good, although we don't quite have a release date or window just yet. For upcoming strategy roguelites, which includes RPGs, deck builders, and more, watch this video to discover 50 upcoming games.